Hi, I'm Pastor Kurt, and this is your 5-minute Bible study. Today, we're going to look at Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1, through chapter 12, verse 17. Okay, so what's the context for the book of Hebrews? I remember a professor of mine starting off a lesson on Hebrews by saying, today we're going to study Paul's letter to the Hebrews. But it was not written by Paul, it's not a letter, and it wasn't addressed to the Hebrews. What? Yeah. This book of the Bible here was not written by Paul. This is one of the letters that kind of claims to be Paul, but isn't really Paul. It's not a genuine Pauline letter. And it's not really a letter in the sense of the other letters. And its audience, we're not exactly sure who its audience is. So honestly, we don't have a whole bunch of context for this particular book. We just have what the text gives us. Well, in this particular section, we hear about how the audience is basically saying, yeah, all of this good news that you're telling us sounds great, but it doesn't really seem to match up with our lived experience. Because our lived experience is full of discouragement and hardship and suffering. How does what you're saying connect to that? How many of us today have asked that same question? We hear all of this good news about how God loves us and Jesus died for us, all of this wonderful stuff, which is true, but then we look around and it doesn't seem like it helps sometimes, right? We watch the news, we talk to people, we see what's going on social media, and sometimes we wonder if all of this talk about Jesus really matters. That's where this audience is coming from. They're asking this question, basically saying, why should we pay attention to all of this good news you're telling us when it seems like our world is still a mess? Well, the author has a very good reply to that question. The author reminds them to hold fast to God's promises. Okay, sounds good, but give me some examples. Tell me why. And the author does. The author gives 3 examples in this passage about why we can continue to hold on to God's promises. The first one, in chapter 11, the author talks about faith, and in particular, the hall of faith. This hall of faith is basically a long list of people from the Bible who had faith in God. So the author is using this list of people in the Bible who had faith to encourage the audience to have faith. In other words, all of these people from the Old Testament, they went through hardships and suffering and tough times too, but they continued to trust God. Just go back and read their stories, right? You can read about them in the Bible. And you saw how God continued to work in them and through them and for them. The same thing applies to you. Just as they held on, so too you can hold on. That's the first example we're getting. The second example is the great cloud of witnesses. This is at the beginning of chapter 12. And these are the people who have gone before us. Not just all the people in the Bible, but other Christians, other people who have followed Jesus, whose life has been an example for us. Think about your loved ones who have died, who served as a model of faith for you. These are the clouds of witnesses. Or think about people in the congregation you know who have passed away, but whose faith was an example for you. Right? We are surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses, by all of these people who continued to trust Jesus even through the hard times. And just as they trusted him, so too can we still trust him. And the third example the author gives is Jesus himself. If you think about Jesus' life, especially his passion at the end, he went through a lot of hardships and suffering and stuff too. But God remained faithful to him too. So much so that God raised him from the dead. So we've got these 3 wonderful examples. All of these people in the Old Testament, we've got the cloud of witnesses, and we've got Jesus himself. All three of these examples show us how people continued to trust God even in the hard times. And so these examples remind us that we can continue to trust God in the hard times too. There's your 5-minute Bible study. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.